So hi, welcome back. This is the penultimate, the seconds of final video that I'll be making on this system. This is past what we've all done in class. This is showing you where I end up taking this UCI and design to, so that if you were having fun doing this design and wanted to take it further, you could go in this direction if you would like to. So let me walk you through, first of all, the layout of the UCI and then the system and all the things I've done to make this kind of work the way it does. And then I'll emulate it and show you it working and see what you think. Of course, the ultimate video, the final video, would be a live system test, with the system downstairs. Obviously, I don't have the amplifiers that we have in the design, or the speakers, or the ability to hire them in and set them up to really show you this working 100% as designed. I can, however, send line out signals to the system we have downstairs and show you the system actually working and all of the parts doing what they're supposed to do, which I am figuring out the mechanics of and may not get done until toward the end of the year, but I have some good ideas about how to display what it's doing sound-wise and everything to you in that video. So stand by for that one, I suppose. So, okay, here's where I took this UCI to. Here is the front page. It's a little different to where we ended up, a little more complex looking at least, although a lot of the complication are simply indicators that I've added to the UCI to show what's happening in various systems. Like if you have a look here, I can show which input is going to input to the delays and the infill, whether it's input 2 or mix left and right. I can show if it's muted. I've got some amp indicators for the sub amps and some mute indicators that I've added. I've also changed the color schemes up a little, and I've played around with using images on the buttons, which sort of works out pretty well, I suppose, and tidied it up somewhat. So that's our main page there, which has all the lovely stuff, all the presets, all the return to zeros on the monitor sends. Very nice, and a display of the levels that we're running at fill and delays as well. Plus, I have a couple of layers that come up for system mutes and monitor HPF, and I can also get into the 3 new pages that I've added to this design, which are the line out systems to test to a line out using the 1022s that we have, and the amps. I have some control systems set up for the amps in this UCI, which is just utility. This page, the infill delay set page, the input to configuration page, if you will, looks pretty much where we left it, I would suggest, although you'll notice the back button has gone because I swapped out the controls that were doing those buttons to toggle buttons rather than selectors, which changed up the logic for it a little. I'll show you that in the designs when we get there. Everything else remains the same. Then we go to our EQs, which I have spent quite some time looking even, so that they smoothly go from one to the other and maintain the same lines and sight lines. This actually ended up taking very many hours, but in the doing of it, I learnt a bunch of tricks, including using the guidelines and nudging around elements on the screen. I found a few new tricks that make things a little bit easier to do, locking various things. It's kind of cool. I also added, obviously, presets, a flat button, and the ability to write protect, as we did with the delays, with that preset for each EQ, which is kind of groovy. I'll show the logic for that as well. These are my line out systems. I've got preset out levels and ability to mute. I can see what's going on in my system from that page. So I can see the metering coming in. I can see where I'd set my presets to. I can see if I'm clipping, and I can see what part, if any, of my system is muted at that point, so I could see what was happening in the system. I've also migrated a lot of the amp controls from their elements and components inside the design to this management page. Not everything is migrated, but certainly the levels in and the gains have. I've added some presets and some mutes for that. I can mute or unmute the entire amplifier system or individually if I'm checking an individual system. I can disable the front panel of the amps. I can mute lock or gain lock the front panels instead of disable. I can disable power save, which is like a power saving regime the amps go through, and I can see if it's on or standby from this page rather than going into the design. And I've done the same thing for the 4-channel amp. So there it is. Let me take you through the system and show you that there's a few things that have changed in here, a couple of additions. Obviously, the router has moved out of here onto another section. I haven't eliminated it, I've just moved it out of here for clarity's sake, much as that can be attained here. You'll also notice that the amplifiers are having their mutes and gains controlled using control routers, which take one command to multiple. I've just done it for plugging something in later on and not having to manually punch in a bunch of tags. I've just done it this way. If I open up those routers, you'll see it's one input to all 8 outputs. So when I hit the gain preset, all of the gains on the amplifier channels change, for example. So that's all pretty good. Here's the snapshots for the gain resets for the monitors, etc. You've seen all this basically in the original designs. System 2 contains our delay system that we built. Here's where the routers ended up, and I've ended up putting the sub presets on a snapshot controller because the selector was making the sub fader snap with no time in between it. So I put it on a snapshot so I could have a ramp, which makes it just a little nicer. And over here is the controls for those line outs that I'm doing with the 1022s. I've just added some control to the system, and here's all the amp stuff down here, or most of it. Yeah, actually here's all the amp stuff that I've dragged out and just kept available for me to build the UCI. It was easier to drag it out of here than the individual component every time. And of course here is really just a lot of kind of fluff, not a lot of substance here. These are just the presets and the write protects for all of the graphic EQs, which are just a copy of the circuit we did for the delays. The color code has ended up on system 3 and just some display LEDs about mutes, which I'm using as you saw in the interface. Plus all the meters, I can check what's happening with the UCI, and here of course is a safety for all of the presets for this. Once you had it set, you would do a snapshot in here, and that would retain, that's actually a snapshot of all of those EQs and how they're set. So you would be able to save all of the preset status for those, and if someone was to mess up all of the presets and overwrite them with stupid settings, you could go back into the design and reload and reset all of their presets, which I thought was just a nice safety to have in a system that you're going to deploy to anywhere where people could mess it up. All right, so let's emulate and have a look, shall we? Yes, the licenses have changed. That's fine. Obviously, I'm not in the core at the moment, so we won't be seeing any metering, but you should get the idea of how it should work. Okay, so we are emulating, very good. And as you can see, my presets can do stuff to the sub meters, and they're doing a nice little ramp, which I like. Same thing is with these monitors. I can reset them within that limited range that we set, and I can of course reset those back to 0 dB, and they do that in a nice way. Here's how I access the EQs from this page. Here's how I access the input mutes for this page. The amplifiers and the lines. Here's the system mutes. It's just a little panel that comes up, so I can mute the subs, delays, infill. I can actually mute the mon from here, and when I do that, notice that this displays the mute, that displays the mute, these mutes are displayed here. So that's all tied in and indicates, and it indicates on every page. So that's kind of groovy, and I can do that. and bring them all back, which is nice. I have them on HPF set. As you can see, they fade on and stay on until I click the button again. That's using a toggle instead of a selector to do the UCI layer control, which is kind of cool. All right, so let's have a look at input 2. Since we're in it, here we are. Very good. Obviously, my presets work the way they're supposed to, which is nice. The presets for this also work. And if I go back to the main page, you'll see that indicates input 2 is now doing the delays. So this is tracking what's going on the other page, which is kind of nice. That way, however you like to do it. Set delays now looks like this, which is quite pretty, I suppose. There's the right protect. There's our, you know this one very well, so I won't labour the point. Again, it toggles on and off. Set infill. There's a HPF. Now I did add this meter, which took quite some doing, I must say. I grabbed a fader, a knob, a frequency knob, and limited the range, and had to then line up these numbers so that it was accurate. But you'll see that it's pretty accurate when you do it. So full range is 40, which is where the meter ends up. Music is 75, theatre 110, speech 124. So it's kind of right, and the bypass will indicate with an LED and track that too. So that's kind of groovy. I like that. And of course, from there we go to our EQs, which, as you can see, here's EQ. I can change stuff around. I can make it go flat, or I can make it go back to its preset. And the preset is right protected, of course. Now I could overwrite this. I could change that, overwrite the preset, and right protect it again, which is kind of groovy. Delay EQ is the same. Infill EQ is the same. Everything is set up the same. And then we get into the monitor EQs, which elegantly follow the line of the buttons down to the drum fill, which is kind of nice. Now I do have to go back to the main page to get to our line out situation, which is pretty groovy. I can get them to go to 0, -12, -20, or mute, which mutes the outputs. I have clip indicators. And again, if I do the muting, I'll go back to the main page and actually set up some mutes. Let's do the input mutes, and let's do the system mutes, just here. Great, I'll go to the line page, and all those mutes are tracking and showing up here, which is kind of cool. Go back to main page and redo that pretty easily. So look, it should all work this way, and a lot of this has been me playing around with this UCI, often late at night, going, wouldn't it be groovy if this could happen, or what about if I could do this, or what about if I could show this here as well? And I've just kept going and tried to work out a way to get the QSys to do it with its logic without having to do any coding whatsoever. And I think I've gotten pretty good with that. This operates the way I want it to. If I had the amps connected, I would have all this control over them as well. You can see the faders track. Obviously, I can mute all. I can individually unmute. I can gain lock, mute lock, or disable the panels. I can turn the amp off. I can do whatever I need to from the front panel to do everything. It also shows limiting, power saving, overcurrent in the amplifiers, indicates for each channel. So this would be useful if you were running a system. I can also get to the other amp from here and do similar stuff, which is kind of groovy, and back to the main page. So look, that's where I took the design and the UCI to. It was just fun for me to do. Maybe I'm insane, but I found it a bit of fun to do. So if you found it fun to do the design we were working on together for about 5 weeks in class, you could keep going with this, and I will show you the systems again so you can get them. Let me disconnect, because then it shows the system just a little bit better. And you could attempt to do this if you like, and if you get stuck anywhere, of course, you can always email me and I will put you down the path if you wanted to take this out further. Look, I just found this to be a really good thing. I had an idol as a young man called Ivor Davies, who was a very good songwriter and singer and composer and band leader. He was in a band called Ice House, which was a very big band for many years in the 80s and 90s. He had a Fairlight CMI, which was a very rare and prestigious instrument to have, and he was very good at using it. Someone once asked him how he did it, and he said, I had to teach myself to use it in time to do a soundtrack. Uh, and so, being a classically trained musician, I put in a symphony orchestra piece into it, piece by piece, and learned how to drive it that way. And I always found that inspirational. I think it was Mahler's Fifth Symphony. And he was a symphony orchestra level reed player. Cor Anglais, I think, was his instrument. Anyway, and I've applied that myself in a lot of ways. I sort of learned Pro Tools that way, I must say, with just, wouldn't it be cool if, and I've got to get right into it and get it to do something big to really learn how it works. And I think this is a good vehicle to do that, this particular design. Anyway, and there's those protections, and there's some LEDs. So you could take screenshots of that and copy the components and the connections. It should all be labeled exactly as needs be. I've tried to do this as professionally as possible. And one last thing before I leave this video, I did want to show you a little trick that I came across when I was doing this. As I was delving into how to make UCIs work a little better, and I stumbled across a thing called CSS style sheets, which is a carryover from HTML programming. I did a little bit of this when I had on MySpace. Used to be able to customize your look. Anyway, CSS style sheet will actually enable you to customize, standardize your entire UCI look and feel, including images, text, fonts, general color schemes, outlines, stroke, like the whole, you can define anything. You can put things into classes like faders or knobs or LEDs, and you can do a whole stylistic thing with that. You can attach images, as I've said. So I found one on the internet, and I wanted to show you what it does. When I plug it in, you have to go to your user control interfaces and go to the interface itself, click on the properties, and that's what this style tab here is. And if you go down here, I've actually preloaded this. You have to do it in show design resources. This shows you where we can get these and import them into your design, and they stay with your design, so you don't have to save them separately and all that. It just automatically loads up. So it's here. Now I've already loaded into this, and it's fader and knob. So I'm going to enable that CSS style and just show you what it's done to the faders in my design now. In my UCI at least. So you'll see the faders have actually turned into this nice image here, which is a kind of an interesting look. Now, this I'm just showing you with this one thing, but CSS style sheets are basically a scripting protocol that you have to learn how to drive. I'm not doing that yet, but you can get them from the internet as well. Other people sort of make them available online, which is where I got this one from a designer from Tag in Melbourne. He put it up on the UCI Designers community page on QSIS. This is how nerdy your lecturer has got with this thing. I'm on communities and groups on the internet. That's very nerdy. Anyway, and he put this up, so I've downloaded it, of course. This is why I'm running 9.12, by the way. I had to upgrade to that on my. I still can run 9.3 to do what we're doing, but I've had to download 9.12 as well to run this. Otherwise, the faders didn't quite work. But it's done this also on this page, and it's done it on the EQs as well, which is kind of an interesting look. Look, it's just to show you the levels you can go to with it. You can attach any sorts of things, animations, images. You can define how each button should look, colors, the whole thing. It's just another world that we haven't really discussed yet, but I just thought I'd let you know about it in some way, shape, or form. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you've got something out of this, and I will be back at some point over the next couple of months with a live demonstration of this system, driving our downstairs RMIT system in the auditorium, including delays and infill, and monitors. Anyway, thanks very much. See you soon.